doing my best to make you part of versus the rest.
Hey, welcome to Versus the Rest. Today we're gonna watch another video of Jimmy Dore. You can tell I like him. He's got Cornel West, who's the Green Party candidate at the moment. And it says Cornel West is a 45 minutes commercial for Joe Biden. It's kind of strange because everybody's saying like, oh, because you're running, you're just splitting votes and everything. It's like, whatever. We'll see. We'll see.
Welcome back to the show, Dr. Cornel West.
Oh, thank you, my dear brother. I think about you. I think of George Carlin. You know, the Union Seminary is right across the street from George Carlin Place.
Oh, really? No kidding.
What a grand genius. He grew up on 121st and Broadway next to Corpus Christi Church, and they got a beautiful sign saluting him. And beside Richard Pryor, he's got to be one of the greatest comic geniuses of the last 50 years, my brother.
Well, I certainly wish he was still alive right now because I know he would
George Carlin, definitely.
That we've been living through at least since 2015. But I want to just before we start, I want to get this out there because some people misunderstood my coverage of your appearance with Anderson Cooper, and they took it as an attack on you when I was merely trying to help you get the message right about the Ukraine war. Because as a radical, part of your job is to educate people on what's actually happening, and you have to be crystal clear in explaining it to people, especially about what's happening in Ukraine. So people took that as me trying to attack you when I was doing it more as a coach, trying to help you and get it right. And that's what I'm going to be doing in this interview also, because I was thrilled to hear that you're running third party. You got more. That's what RFK should have done. You're a better man than me. And so I appreciate you doing it because.
Or I didn't watch a video, but there was a video about RFK saying that he was getting screwed by the Democratic Party. It's like, okay, obvious.
You're getting the message out there about the Ukraine war, about the two-party duopoly. This is really important. And so if I just want to tell people, so if it seems like I'm being critical of Cornel West from here going forward to the election, what it is going to be is me trying to help make his message even better than it is.
No, that's what we all do.
Really
nice one, Jimmy.
That his message get out.
We all try that.
That's what this is about. So anyway, I just wanted to clear that up.
Oh, sure. I think the important thing always is, brother, that, you know, the anthem of black folk is lift every voice, not lift every echo. You got a voice. I've got a voice. Our voices overlap. Our voices can have tension. Our voices can conflict. We can learn from one another. We proceed. We've got a similar critique of the predatory capitalist society. We've got a similar critique of a whole host of issues, and certain things we disagree with. Well, that's understandable too. I'm learning from you. You learning from me. But it's the respect more than anything else that's crucial here. And I think I appreciate you starting off with that kind of a reflection, my brother. Very much so.
So now people make a big deal.
The problem with Jimmy is that he respects more truth than he does respect the people that come over, watch it on his show. In ants, no. I don't know. The quality was like
a lot of the fact that you endorsed Joe Biden in 2020, and now you're running against him. And the reason what was the reason you endorsed him in 2020, and what has changed since?
Yeah, one, I was thoroughly convinced that we needed an anti-fascist coalition, and that included the kind of milquetoast warmongering neoliberals like Biden.
How is he anti-fascist more than any other president before?
4 years is still the thunder from any kind of Trump challenge. 4 years to try to speak to the needs of poor and working people. 4 years to try to cut back on the military adventurism. That's been characteristic of his whole career.
Trying's not working.
And it's clear to me now that if the only opposition to the escalating neo-fascism in the country is going to be Biden, or Biden-like, then the fascism is coming anyway. We're going to have alternative vision, alternative institutions, alternative infrastructure that has an alternative passion. And so if all we can do is produce democratic administrations that are caretakers, postponers of the Trump or Trump-like candidates, then the fascism's coming anyway. The only way you really get at the roots of fascism is to break from the corporate duopoly, to show how the two-party system is an impediment for the unleashing not only of American democracy, but also trying to dismantle the empire in terms of the 800 military units around the world and the military budget taking 57 cents for every dollar. And so in that sense, there's been a shift. There's no doubt about that. Now, keep in mind, I supported Ralph Nader and Jill Stein. And in between, I
it's strange he didn't support Jill Stein. Now he's running for the Green Party.
Anti-right-wing coalition, too. So that my jazz-like activities certainly can be characterized at times with a certain kind of inconsistency, but it's the timing of it. Each moment has its own context.
So now, our friend Nick Cruz says that many climate activists have no idea how much they destroyed all their credibility by endorsing and supporting Joe Biden, the Nord Stream pipeline bomber, and the largest eco-terrorist in modern human history for president. Why should anyone take climate or environmental issues seriously when you obviously do not? Now, what do you say back to that kind of critique that by endorsing him, you lose your credibility?
Well, it becomes, I think, I've been on my dear brother's show a number of times, and I think there's always a certain force in the argument of trying to be consistently third party across the board, having no relation whatsoever to the bourgeois politicians. I think there's force to that. But I think the credibility that one has really is holistic. It's wholesale rather than just retail. And the credibility that you have in regard to being consistently against war, consistently against capital, consistently against white supremacy, even if it has different kind of stances from one election to the next. That would be one of the ways in which I would try to respond to that. That would be the beginning of a response to that.
Okay. Here's another tweet from Nick. He says the same professional managerial class gaslighters want us to take it easy on Bernie. They use civility politics as a weapon so they can comfortably sell out. The working class must reject this and start holding these people accountable for selling us out.
Yeah, like
so
Bernie
Sanders has sold us out, and I don't need you to call him a sellout or anything. That's fine.
He's a friend.
But I do want to see, this is your response, because Bernie was asked about your campaign and said it shouldn't happen, and he's against it, and he's endorsing Biden, and of course that is just garbage. And so this is how you responded.
And you even in love, people have deep disagreements about these things. But I think again, he's fearful of the neo-fascism of Trump.
So when my what I would say to you here, this is a big
what is so fascist about Trump more than like anybody else?
That when you do that,
people don't know what fascism means.
You sound a little bit like Joe Biden, and what you're doing is you're giving a pass to Bernie Sanders and anybody else for voting lesser of two evils. So you're endorsing the Democrats' message in their campaign. And so now people can dismiss your candidacy and say, well, we got to worry about the neo-fascism of Trump, as if Joe Biden isn't worse, which he is. He's a bigger fascist.
He's at least
and,
as much
he
minimum
just
in every way.
Union strike on the railroad, which is the definition of fascism.
Pretty much.
He's now trying to saber around
Trump never
two,
did anything like that.
Nuclear powers, nuclear war, nothing more important than that. And what he's doing in Ukraine,
he's helping
exactly
BlackRock and everything.
Right? So he's the worst warmonger in the world. 300,000 Ukrainians have already been slaughtered in this proxy war that was provoked by NATO, which you know. So when do you think that when you say that
That's
about
heavy, Jimmy.
when you call Donald Trump a neo-fascist and you don't say that about Joe Biden, what do you say when I tell you that you're undercutting your own campaign and you are propping up the Democratic message, which is that they are the lesser of two evil and you have to vote for Joe Biden so we don't have fascism. By the way, we already have fascism.
Yes,
as we all know, the fascism
undeniable.
is the joining of corporate and government to screw the worker. And that's exactly what Joe Biden, the Democrats, and Pete Buttigieg did.
They're not going to change
it. They will keep doing it, and they're not stopping it. And they're also for censorship, which is the hallmark of fascism.
Pretty much.
So this idea that Donald Trump is more of a fascist than Joe Biden undermines your own campaign. There's no doubt about that. And so what I would encourage you to stop doing that. What do you say back?
No.
It's nice, Jimmy. You gotta.
I don't think, and this is why I disagree with Nick too. That and I appreciate your
I understand,
here.
Jimmy. I'm like that. I'm just like him.
In a respectful way, but we do, and I disagree with Brother Nick on this too. That I just got back from Mississippi. You know that. You know what the Jenkins and Parkins, the two brothers brutalized by the police. There at the church, the Klan still running wild. Not just with votes, but terrorizing black folk. The Goon Squad finally got caught by two lawyers, Brother Malik and Brother Trent. Now, what does that mean? That means that when you talk about fascism, you're talking not just about the rule of big money, not just the rule of big military.
Well,
not
it's
just
corporations over government.
Power, so that it's oligarchic in essence. But you're also talking about dictatorial rule, no elections.
No.
Elimination of dissident voices.
It's not.
And then the scapegoating of the most vulnerable, which is
it's not true. It's like if you can be a psychopath with just having like 5 of the 9 traits. So I mean, you can be ruled by fascism directly when corporations have power over your government, and that you're ruled upon them, or corporations can make law or silence. I mean, all of this has been seen. They have broken like what he said about the railroad workers. I don't know. I always have problems with that word in English. Syndicat. It's a union. It's completely contrary of what the French name is. So and like at every step, I mean, fascism wins.
Workers, it could be black people, Jews, Arabs.
Doesn't have to be everything at the same time.
Under Biden, what you have is a fascist dimension domestically, especially against black folk and others.
No, there's no fascism against black people. It doesn't work like that.
Eliminated overnight. A fascist regime could completely call into question what the use of arbitrary power. That's what happens in the mass incarceration regime vis-a-vis poor black people and others.
Okay.
So that is the fascist dimension.
No, but yeah.
So the militarism abroad. So that there's fascist elements, my brother. There's fascist dimensions. But with Trump, when you have calling into question transfer of power and so forth, that is not the same thing. And so that doesn't
transfer of power has nothing to do with fascism.
100% undermines your campaign. 100%. You're shooting yourself right in the dick before you even start. So that's just bad. You're getting bad advice. I don't know who's advising you, but they're giving you horrible advice.
I'm a free man. I'm a free man, brother.
So January.
But I want to hear your argument. I want to hear your argument as to how Biden is more fascist than Trump.
Ukraine.
Trump
just lay it out right quick.
Well, I'll tell you right now. The reason why the deep state Russiagated Trump was because he wouldn't bomb enough to calm them down. So he wouldn't do enough bombing. The reason they impeached him...
The first time they impeached him is because he didn't want to send more weapons to Nazis in Ukraine.
So that's
are you defending Trump as somehow?
Yeah, it was a good thing that Trump did a good thing.
So, I don't understand. I don't understand your argument at this point, though, man. What are we talking about?
Okay, so there's...
I want to understand what the content of your argument is, because one can, in fact... bring critique to bear on the system as a whole with the two corporate wings.
No, but it's Trump himself that denied.
What do you say to
and the corporate wing went against him and tried to impeach him.
They're right.
So that's again. Joe Biden is responsible for the mass incarceration, not Donald Trump. Who is more responsible for black and brown people being locked up?
Biden made laws before.
The largest penal colony in the world. Is it Donald Trump or would it be Joe Biden?
It's Joe Biden.
This conversation is a loser for your campaign.
Yeah. You should know about history.
Trying to make the argument.
It could be a loser for you too, though.
Trying to make the argument.
No, you trying to make the case that somehow the Democrats are more fascists
Well,
and the
check
Republicans.
history.
The fascism cuts across the board.
It does.
That's not how you say it, though. You say it's only Donald Trump. You don't say it comes across the board.
You say that neo-fascism is Donald Trump and not
You
Biden.
call Donald Trump a fascist. So you're not saying Joe Biden is a fascist.
It's bad for you, I
really?
agree.
I said the fascist dimension.
Jimmy's got
to the-
strong
to the
points.
Biden project. You're absolutely right.
It's
But
like
the
you're
question is-
campaigning for Joe Biden almost when you're doing this.
Oh,
That's what it
no,
sounds
that-
like.
That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous.
But that's what it's. I'm not saying you are doing that. I'm saying that's what it sounds like.
What it sounds like to you. That's what it sounds like to you.
No, to
you
me
got
too.
a right to be wrong. You got a right to be
A little
right.
bit.
It sounds like to you. But it doesn't sound like that to a whole host of others at all, though, brother. Not
Okay.
at all.
All right. Again, I'm saying this out of love for you because I do have deep
appreciate
love
it.
for you.
I
have
appreciate
deep
it.
respect for you.
He said
and
he
we
said some
agree
good
on
things in the
almost
past, Cornel
everything
West.
Except
Gotta
the
attest.
message of your campaign, right? That's the only thing. I would hope it would become even more focal. Let me just put it this way.
But are you suggesting that the message should be that Biden is a greater fascist than Trump?
Yeah, you should. You
No,
should
I'm
be
not
fighting
saying that you
both
should talk
fascism.
about fascism or any of that stuff. I
Maybe you
think
shouldn't.
over fascism
Maybe you
is
just
very
shouldn't
real.
talk
You
about
think
fascism.
fascism is
I
real
get.
in
I
the
agree.
country?
I
We're
guess.
living in it.
Yeah,
We're living in
It's like-
fascism.
But I'm talking about
Talk about shit when all you do is shit.
You know,
It has since Biden became president. It certainly has escalated in intensity. They've censored everybody. They've crushed unions. They've started another war, and now they're saber rattling with two
positive.
nuclear powers. I don't know how I don't know how worse it could get. And by the way, he still hasn't let people out of prison. He still hasn't given student loan. He's still denying us health care. He doesn't. He's an enemy of the worker and a
He
tool
didn't
of
fight the
military
Roe
industrial
v.
complex
Wade.
in Wall Street. There's no bigger fascist in the country than Joe Biden. The reason why black and brown people are locked up again isn't because of Trump. It's because of brother Biden. And
Much
Joe Biden
more.
is proud of that. He brags about
He
that.
did,
He
because
brags
he-
about
in
the
the
crime bill, and
80s
he
or
will
90s.
never apologize for it. So I'm just letting you know that I really want your campaign to pick up traction. This is the opposite way to do it. Who's ever advising you sounds like an infiltrator.
but
Oh,
why do you
nice.
think that?
Nice, Jimmy.
I'm
I think you're
for
right.
myself,
A lot of people.
Okay, I don't
Even
think
Trump
so.
was
That's not-
infiltrated.
That's not just a question of advising.
Okay.
I don't answer who's advising you. You think yourself.
Nobody.
You're a free man too, aren't you?
You're right. You're right. Okay.
Okay, good.
I'm
All right.
trying to put it
I'm
in the
like-
right
I
way.
understand.
Use that kind of language, my
Could
brother.
be.
You want to be respectful.
It
I'm
could
trying
be
to be respectful.
misrespect.
That was
Could be
my
true, however.
I know it look like it's hard sometimes, but I appreciate it. But we just have disagreements on these things.
Again,
If I undermine the campaign for you, then you free to have your own view and vision.
Okay.
People are free to listen to you and be persuaded or not.
I
I've
agree.
got mine. I'm listening for your insight. Absolutely right. No
It's
doubt
true.
about that.
So let me
It's
just
got some good points.
say this. So the point of running a third-party campaign is to offer an alternative to the two major parties, to bring together disaffected members of those parties, along with independents and
Makes sense.
others who feel alienated from the political system as it exists. And the best way to do this is by running on economic issues that unite us, but which neither major
in
party
unity,
is willing
indeed.
to address because they're both beholden to the same powerful corporate interests. The Democratic Party long ago abandoned the working class in favor of beating the drum on cultural issues, and
It's
now that's
true.
all the Democrats have to
It's
run on.
such a waste
So if
of time.
voters are looking for a party running on trans rights and calling Donald
It's
Trump and his
disgusting.
supporters white supremacists, they can already vote for Democrats. The role of a third party is to focus not on the identity politics that divide us,
No,
but
definitely
on
not.
core economic
On true
issues
leftist
that unite
issues.
us along class lines, like Christian Smalls did at Staten Island. Do you think he led with LGBTQ trans rights and white
No,
supremacy?
you don't
Or
need
do you
that.
think he organized along class lines? That's what we have to
It's
do. We
true.
have to organize,
Like
meet
Bernie
people
Sanders.
where they are. That's
That's what
what
he
is
did.
your plan to organize along class lines, or are you going to keep talking about white supremacy and all those ideas?
Jimmy is so right, because that's the main thing that the Uni Party, the Democrats and Republicans don't have, is like a good idea about economics and the social class. They work in tandem together. They don't care about the social tensions of different classes. And Bernie, he fought, and that's what made him very popular, actually. And it's true. And there's always a position for classism issue, and they are true issues much more than race issues. Race issues might hurt people individually, but I mean, it's not as an important factor as access to wealth.
identity politics, which are there not from the ground up, from the top down, to make sure we stay divided. What is your plan to organize along class lines?
He sees it.
Well, I appreciate again the clarity.
I love how he's a conspiracy theorist.
We have to say we have profound disagreements, brother. When I organize around white supremacy, I'm not making some utilitarian calculation. I'm speaking as a black man who comes out of a tradition that's been terrorized and traumatized by white elites. And that does not in any way mean it takes me away from class issue. Class issues are crucial. Class issues are fundamental.
But then talk about it more.
But it doesn't
more.
mean that I'm putting up with white supremacy. One of the problems is that you get too many folk who want to talk class, and can't say a mumbling word about white supremacy, police brutality.
White
Can't say a mumbling word on it. Or
it's a buzzword.
You call it identity politics as if it's not connected to class. I'm hitting these head on. I'm standing with the workers when it comes to strikes.
I mean, this might be something, a strange polemic, or it might be strange for me to say, but I have a feeling that, like, in general, white people are probably the less racist of all races. That's like a very big prejudice. But I mean, we are already socially inclined and like doing the best we can to try to do reparations, even as individuals. I don't believe it that like white are the most racist. Of course, there's always exceptions, but in general, really not. I entirely disagree. I'm sure that like not exactly towards white or everything, but I'm sure there's like more. I don't know, like. I'm getting into something too deep here. I might be talking out of my ass. I don't know, but I'm sure that the white supremacy is like, I don't know, on the list of dangers of it's gonna hurt. Like at many levels, it's like maybe the 50th problem that the government would need to check out. It's really, really low on the list. There's much more, like just black on black violence is such more a problem. And I mean, some people are talking about it, but not the media. That's where you see where it's a manipulation, and it's all just to manipulate the political spectrum of people. They don't want solutions. If ever they bring solutions, then they'll have nothing to fight over for.
I'm standing with the workers when it comes to greedy bosses. I'm standing with the workers when it comes to obsession with profits and the needs not in any way being satisfied. But I'll never for a minute be silent. I'm not or not raising my voice in terms of vicious treatment of black people, indigenous people, gay brothers, lesbians,
when now?
Trans. It's not an either or.
Where?
That's where you and I have a deep, profound disappointment.
It's just on an individual level.
And I noticed you hardly say a mumbling word
problem,
about white supremacy.
It's not the government.
It's some kind of identity
it's an
politics,
education
and I'm against
problem.
it, but I don't want to talk about it. I only want to talk about what people hold in common. But black people are not going to hold it in common if you don't say a word about white supremacy, but maybe some of your white friends will. So who are you talking about when you talk about?
I think a lot of black people are just sick of hearing about white supremacy.
What, my dear brother? I will never, ever in a million years not talk about vicious legacies of white supremacy, male supremacy, homophobia, transphobia, and others. But class will always be very much at the center.
Classes are very much more important than all of that.
Our fundamental solidarity with working classes, not just here, but around the world. But oftentimes when I hear about your show, and you say, well, you know, these identity politics issues get in the way. No,
they do.
In the way.
They do. You're not seeing it right,
so the Democrats, that's all they have to run.
Cornel, I'm sorry. It's not Chris Cornel.
You just sound like a Democrat because that's all they have.
If the talk about the dignity of black people in the face of vicious white supremacy makes me sound like a Democrat, you got the wrong earplug.
Okay.
No, it does.
Clearly.
It does, because that's their main
If you can't hit
issues.
a critique of Wall Street, if you can't hit a critique of militarism, if you can't hit a critique of his foreign policy in Ukraine, and all you can hear when they talk about white supremacy is identity politics, then something's wrong with your earplug, though, bro.
I don't know. That's what I'm hearing too.
It's disappointing.
It is what it is. You are profoundly disappointing in that sense. But I still love you, brother.
I still love you too. I know I don't disagree with what you're saying. I'm talking about having a campaign. I'm not. There's a so
there is an issue, but it's not as important as class.
Utilitarian calculation is. I don't look at black people like a utilitarian calculation. I can't say nothing because these people over here somehow are alienated. I'm telling the truth. I'm fighting for justice. And if people feel as if to talk about white supremacy is alienating, then they're going to be alienated. I'm talking about my mama. I'm talking about my daddy. This ain't no abstract dialogue about politics in the Machiavellian sense. Not at all, my brother.
When Bernie caught...
We march together for class politics.
The problem is that when you call out white supremacy, you get a lot of people like that will stop liking you, really, because like white people are kind of sick of being called racist for absolutely nothing. There's too many prejudices against white people, and when we hear about white supremacy, and we know that we're like trying really hard, and like most white countries have invited like pretty much everybody to come live off the fruits of their labor, off our Christian and Greek philosophy, Christian religion, Greek philosophy combined together and made the new world. I mean, it was not exclusively, obviously, but it was white people that did that, and we invited everybody in, and I think it's great. I think that like having a lot of different values and morals, and I think that like it just makes the stronger morals like more important. And I don't know, at the end, like what is good and what is best is going to win. So I think it's a needed step towards human and civilization as far as evolution goes, but. Stop calling white people racist. Well, I mean, there are some individuals that need to be called out if they are truly racist. I have no problem with that. I'm gonna call it out too. I don't like racism for any prejudices. I don't like them. It's okay to have them. Everybody has them, but to act upon them is just not the right thing to do. It's very limited. It's not smart. It's not wise. I mean, to be careful because you've had bad experiences with people that look like that, and it's not only race. I mean, people always gonna say, oh, usually tall people are like that, maybe short, maybe people that with blue eyes, that's the feeling they have from them. Like everybody has their prejudices, and I think that white people have worked very hard, more than a lot of other races. Yeah, I don't know if they're like inherently less racist or more, but I can't say that white people have not worked harder to fight those prejudices up to the point of even like being not overrun, but actually manipulated against their own interests and their own country from people that they have invited in. That's a whole other story, but I don't know. I think you're just going to push people away from talking about white supremacy, and I'm sure there's a lot of black people that are really sick of hearing about it, because white supremacy all usually points towards like black people, as if white people would hate black people, and there's a lot of black people that know that's not true. It's not. It really goes by individuals. Of course, it happens, but it's not a list problem. Like, no, it's like really down there. I mean, do we need to worry about it? Like at every level, I think that like extreme racism at every level should be socially fought, unless it's true. Unless it's true, unless the profiling is actually true. I mean, we should not go against truth. Truth is still prime. But if that something like that would happen, that would be to each of individuals of that race or that group to try to become better and lose that these prejudices against them.
We march together because that's real. But if you think that talking about white supremacy is just identity politics, we got deep disagreement. That's all.
Okay,
I'm sorry to go on. And
okay.
Let me go.
No, go right ahead. No, go right ahead. I
understand that part.
Honest, everything I'm saying here, coming from my heart, I want your campaign to succeed, and I want you to have the strongest campaign possible. But Bernie caught on because he would always, if he was given a cultural question or an identity politics question, he would always bring it back to class and economics. And it doesn't, well, here I was talking to one of Bernie's campaign managers, and this is what he said. Yes, I personally agree white supremacy is one of the causes. But if I lose two potential allies because they roll their eyes and stop listening before I get to their concerns, I've already lost. The civil rights advancements, women's rights, the environmental movement, they didn't happen because people like my dad voted Democrat because that stuff mattered to them. It happened because Democrats appealed to them on economic issues, and a lot of the Democrats they voted for because of economics also happened to vote for that other stuff. And it doesn't work in the inverse. So
You're just hurting your campaign from being too much on white supremacy.
You can see again how I disagree.
Especially when you're black, I think it's even worse.
I don't know. White folk doing X or Y.
Maybe his life experience. He has. I'm sorry if it happened.
That was multiracial, but led primarily by black folk, and neither party would have done anything without that social movement.
100% right. You're 100% right.
I agree.
No doubt about it. And I think
that's my tradition. That's my tradition. How can you talk about?
No, I love to hear you talk about all that stuff, and that's good for a radical black activist.
He's just saying that
representing his community,
putting it up on the A list is alienating
impress upon
people.
You that there's better ways to run a presidential campaign, and so that for a black radical activist, that's great. That's honey. But for someone who's trying to appeal to a wide swath of people, disaffected Republicans, independents, people, that's a death for that campaign. That's my opinion.
There's maybe 25% of people that agree to white supremacy.
One, I've never said
that say it's a problem. No, I don't agree. No, it's much less than that.
Are fascists? I said
I'm saying that people that agree with it, but there's maybe 25% of people that agree that white supremacy is a big problem. Like less than that. I'm not saying that it's not. It's always kind of a problem. Like kind of whatever I talked about it, but yeah, you're not gonna have more people coming to your campaign that much if that's your issue. They already got the Democratic Party if they want to feel as if their morals are higher than all the rest of the standards, because they set the standard for morals. They don't need to do anything. They just need to say what they subscribe to.
The neo-fascist Pied Piper, his followers, 1 out of 8 went with Bernie, 1 out of 12 went with Barack Obama. He's got a heterogeneous, diverse group. And I can speak my language of truth and justice as it connects to capitalism, imperialism, white supremacy, male supremacy, transphobia, whatever it is. And there's going to be some people who listen, and there's going to be some people who don't. But this is
you need to have the most people.
Political calculation and Machiavellian reflection, brother. This is about the quest for truth and justice. You got to be real. You got to be authentic. I can't.
Good point.
I'm not listening to consultants who tell me to use this particular kind of language.
If that's what you believe in, you might as well be real to yourself.
That is the essence of managerial bourgeois politics. I reject it.
Maybe you're wrong about it, but if that's what you feel like.
I heard you say one time that someone asked you that same question, why don't you call Joe Biden a fascist, but you call Donald Trump a fascist? And one time
you
said
the same. They're just
that it was
as
because
bad.
Donald Trump criminalizes
I think Trump is lesser.
and demonizes his political opponents. And that's what fascists do. Well, of course, now they've been trying to criminalize and put in jail Donald Trump, Joe Biden's number one political opponent, just like they did in Brazil.
It's not a fascist thing, but it's a totalitarian thing.
To anybody, and they'll do it to you if you actually become a threat.
Yes.
They will criminalize you. They've already started to call you right-wing and white supremacist yourself.
Yeah.
And that's the game.
That's what
They'll call you a sexist. They're going to call you, your followers are going to be sexist.
There's like one woman less than men in your campaign.
And white supremacy, all that. You've already been called a right-winger by the establishment. So that's the game that they play. And what they're doing right now is trying to throw in prison anybody who the donor class doesn't want to run and is going to win, they'll throw in prison. They'll do it to Bernie. They russiagated Bernie. They said all his followers were sexist and racist and violent.
Yeah.
They said the same thing that they say about Trump. And they would have criminalized Bernie and put him in jail if he had a spine and he would have stood up to the establishment instead of folding into it. So it's important, I think, that people call out what's happening right now. I don't like Trump one bit. I oppose almost everything he says. And what he called for ending NATO. I join with that.
And hate him.
And I'll join with anybody to do good and nobody to do wrong. Okay?
Same here. I'm with you at that. I'm with you on that too.
And so what's happening right now is what they usually do in third world countries, but they're doing it right here. The donor class doesn't want Donald Trump to become president, and he will.
So they attack
if he's
him
allowed
to other
run.
ways than
and so
true democracy.
They did they're now 4 different indictments, each one more ridiculous than the last.
Pretty much.
And here, RICO, the Georgia anti-racketeering law, is being used to charge Donald Trump. And now the reason I bring this up
They changed the law
is
just to
because
that.
they're the same people that did that to Donald Trump are using the RICO charges to go after activists from Stop Cop City. So let me just give you the story and then you can comment on it. So
Sure.
Georgia prosecutors have filed racketeering charges against 61 people accused of involvement with Stop Cop City, a protest movement against a controversial Atlanta police training facility. The list of defendants suggests that the case implicates people who have already been arrested on tenuous evidence, like a legal observer who was jailed while monitoring protests, activists who ran a bail fund for other defendants.
Most people that are
and a trio of
anti-police
activists
are
arrested
because
while
they're
handing out
criminals.
flyers with the name of a cop who killed a fellow protester. The RICO charges
bad.
come as Georgia's RICO statute receives national attention. Donald Trump and a collection of his associates were charged under the state's severe RICO statute last month. The same grand jury that indicted Donald Trump on RICO charges also indicted the Stop Cop City defendants. Are you getting the game now? The Atlanta Journal-Constitution reported that on Tuesday, the Cop City Vote Coalition, a group that gathered more than 100,000 signatures to put the facility's construction up for a vote this year, condemned
I
the
agree.
charges as
That's what the people
authoritarian
want.
measures by Georgia Attorney General Chris Carr. The group also noted that charging documents described the alleged racketeering scheme as beginning before the police training facility was even announced. Lauren Reagan, executive director of the Civil Liberties Defense Fund, which has been working in support of defendants, said the scope of the case is designed to dissuade people from supporting the Stop Cop City movement. It's been very clear that Georgia's intentions and how they've conducted themselves regarding the resistance to Cop City has been to try and scare even above ground law-abiding participants from taking part. I think by roping in a legal observer and people running a nonprofit and running a lawful bail fund is absolutely intended to scare people from supporting this cause now and in the future. In September of
That's
21,
not pro-democracy,
Atlanta
that's for sure.
approved plans to build a police training facility dubbed Cop City by opponents in the city's South River Forest. The plans were controversial. Approximately 70% of locals who weighed in during a public comment opposed the facility.
I'm not sure exactly why they do oppose it.
Its
Personally,
environmental
I don't know
impact
why,
and
but there's got to
potential
be good
effect
reasons,
on
I guess.
over-policing in Atlanta. When the city moved ahead with the plans for construction, activists protested on the proposed construction site. Police shot and killed a protester, Manuel Tortuguia Esteban Paez Terán, in January
good
when they
for
accused
PR.
Terán of firing a gun. Subsequent autopsies have cast doubt on those claims. Soon after Terán's killing, police charged 19 more Stop Cop City activists with terrorism, despite many being accused of nothing more than misdemeanor trespassing around the proposed construction site. In a later crackdown, police conducted mass arrests at Stop Cop City Music Festival, accusing some people of engaging in property damage at a nearby protest. On the questionable basis that those people allegedly had mud on their shoes. The music festival was held in a forest. One of those legal observers was an attorney with the Southern Poverty Law Center and the National Lawyers Guild. Footage appears to show Thomas Jurgens being arrested while wearing one of the neon green hats that identifies NLG legal observers. We had some differences. When I say we, I mean myself and the Attorney General's office about who should be charged with what they should be charged with, Boston told WABE. She added that Jurgens' case was one of the touch points of a number of touch points that ultimately led me to make the decision that I have made here now. The value set of our office is that I will only proceed on cases that I believe I can make beyond a reasonable doubt. The RICO charges also name 3 activists who were arrested this summer and charged with money laundering and charity fraud connected to their work running a bail fund that supported Stop Cop City defendants. Prosecutors allege that the trio committed felonies by spending some of the fund's money on such things as gasoline, forest cleanup, totes, COVID rapid tests, media, yard signs, and other miscellaneous expenses. Marlon Couts, one of the bail fund organizers named in the RICO charges, told the Daily Beast that the indictment was part of an effort to discredit activists. These indictments are just the latest chapter in a long-running campaign by Governor Kemp and Atlanta authorities to terrorize political activists. Since the beginning of the movements against Cop City, the Georgia Attorney General has shown a willingness to abuse the legal process as a weapon against political opposition. Judges have questioned the constitutionality of their methods, and even local prosecutor Sherry Boston has publicly condemned this prosecution as baseless and refused to participate. Make no mistake, this indictment is not about enforcing the law. It's a desperate overreach in an attempt to discredit legitimate political opposition, and it won't work. That's exactly what they're doing with Donald Trump. That's exactly what they'll do to you. That's exactly what they'll do to Bernie Sanders. That's exactly what they'll do to me.
True.
They'll do to anybody who is a threat to the establishment.
Yep.
And
Let
so,
me get a word in. Let me get a word in.
so I'm going to
now.
let you. So I just want you to. So
Absolutely.
Go ahead. Take it
He's
where you
right.
will.
Jimmy's right.
I'm very glad that you're zeroing in on the struggle to shut down Cop City. I'm in deep solidarity with them. We're working together in the coming weeks, virtually and so forth. But there's a logical.
Okay, I guess maybe it's a
fallacy,
worthy
rational
thing.
gap
Find it
in
weird,
your
but whatever.
attempt to compare
I don't know much to
freedom fighters
judge.
against a vicious system in the name of everyday folk in ghettos and hoods and working class communities against the police versus Trump. I'm not in solidarity with Trump. I want him to have a fair trial. I'm not in solidarity with Trump simply because they use the same law against courageous, visionary freedom fighters against police brutality and police murder versus the same law against a gangster like Trump. Doesn't put Trump on a spectrum with freedom fighters, brother, at all. It doesn't put him on the spectrum at all.
That's not the point.
That's the fundamental difference between you and I in this case. But I'm glad you're talking about stuff.
I don't know. I don't know. That was the point.
Because we know it's planned to be in a number of other cities as well. But I'm in Mississippi. It was a goon squad. The goon squad is shot through cities across the country. We saw it in Memphis. It's in Atlanta. It's in Chicago. But the idea of you recognizing that the same weaponization against these courageous freedom fighters is somehow on a spectrum with Trump,
that's not the point. I don't think so.
That.
Unless I've misunderstood.
I think he's probably done a number of things that warrants a serious fair trial with him going to jail, but we shall see.
So you're for prosecuting the last president after he loses an election. You think that's a good way to run a democracy? Because again, you don't see the connection that this is the donor class criminalizing anybody who they don't like, and they'll do it to you, and they'll do it to Bernie, and they'll do it to any else.
Activist.
And so you don't have to like
anybody that's against their fascism.
I don't at all. But I see what the game is being played.
I'm using fascism sparingly here.
You don't see this game, really.
He's not a conspiracy theorist.
The same law against the Proud Boys. I wanted a fair trial. I wanted to make sure they're treated, but at the same time,
they're doing
the fact
to the
that they're being weaponized. But see, I think your support of Trump is deeper than you're acknowledging. You keep saying, I don't like Trump.
I think Jimmy's being pretty wise, but
kind of
nasty a little bit. That's not what he wants to hear. But
I'm not comparing
no, that's okay.
that. I'm saying that.
Go ahead, Jimmy.
I'm saying no. I'm not saying. I'm not.
Of course, they're going to use it against anybody who.
It's the government. Okay. That's amazing that you don't see this. It is unbelievable that you don't see this. This is such a loser for you.
We had this opportunity to show the deep differences. Very deep differences, though. But you do what you got to do, and I'm doing what I got to do, and I learn from you. And I hope you can learn a little bit from me, but we shall see.
The biggest story of my lifetime, if it wasn't Russiagate, which led directly to the Ukraine war, and I said it was going to in 2017 when they did this, and I told everybody at the Young Turks they're going to use this to start a war. They're going to use this.
Really?
And they did.
I didn't know if he was. I didn't hear that much about it before.
The second biggest story.
I'll inform myself after Russia
lockdown,
attack.
If not the biggest. And
I didn't know about it
many people
before.
who were supposed to be out in front on this dropped the ball. people like Noam Chomsky. So here's the Green Party.
Noam
What they said. They
Chomsky's
said the
gone.
Green Party, which you're running with, the Green Party of the United
crazy
States
now.
Steering Committee strongly supports the use of vaccines, vaccine mandates, and quarantines as part of a
Demon.
comprehensive public health effort to curb and eradicate the novel coronavirus pandemic that has swept the globe since early 2020. The
Which
whole thing
globe?
was a hoax. And here's what the Black Caucus of the Green Party said. They said the National Black Caucus of the Green Party of the United States strongly opposes the use of forced vaccination
you.
via mandates and the discrimination that is being
Definitely.
generated around these policies. Lockdowns, mandates,
evil.
and passports are the major issue of the day, with millions of people protesting against them worldwide. In fact, what has become known as the medical freedom movement is arguably the biggest and most diverse international movement in world history. Vaccine mandates and vaccine passports are among the most vile, unconstitutional, immoral,
thank you.
unscientific, discriminatory, and outright criminal policies ever
Indeed,
forced upon
especially
the
when they don't
population,
work.
and goes against everything the Green Party stands for under social justice. These policies are coming from an out-of-control government at the behest of the pharmaceutical industry.
Yes, fascism.
The mainstream media and social media are also working in lockstep to censor any and all doctors, scientists, and investigative journalists
Fascism.
who have an opposing view or who even question the current mainstream media orthodoxy. Workers are being forced out of their jobs, many with medical exemptions
Even
from their
pe-
doctors.
even workers
Students
at
are
home.
being denied entrance to educational institutions. Needed medical treatment is being denied. Medical privacy is being violated.
Disgusting.
Constitutionally protected rights to movement and assembly, including
Geneva.
the right to travel, are being threatened. Rights to normal societal participation are being decimated. It has taken a while, but more recently, many medical professionals, elected officials, and federal judges have come out fully against lockdowns, vaccine mandates, vaccine passports, and of course, massive censorship. The National Black Caucus of the Green Party of the United States adheres to the principle that informed consent in all personal health and medical decisions is an inalienable human right. Under
that's
no
nice.
circumstances shall any medical treatment or procedure, including psychotropic medications, vaccines, or other injectable treatments, be mandated or coerced. Individuals should be allowed to protect and heal themselves in a manner that best supports their medical spiritual beliefs. So,
Makes sense.
I just wanted. I don't understand why you aren't outraged by that. Why do you share the sentiment of the Black Caucus of the Green Party, and have you talked to them?
Well, one thing, it's good to have a Green Party where you have a variety of different voices that are clashing and the tensions are very real.
It's true.
I think there's no doubt that the pharmaceutical company has played a disproportionate role in shaping public policy. I think the kind of concerns that you
Fascism.
and RFK, and others have certainly are well grounded in that sense. On the other hand, we know there's been a whole host of vaccines in regard to other kinds of illnesses that are much more effective. The question becomes making sure, and one of the things I want to do, I want to have a truth commission to find out exactly what was the level of corruption that took place during these years. Be
you
able
need to know.
not just the text.
You need
We know the
that.
books are out there, but to have a truth commission so that we can see what voices were
Well,
marginalized, what voices were
don't
pushed
really need
aside, and make sure it never happens again. I resonate
Okay.
with the spirit of what my Green
true.
Black brothers and sisters are saying, but the Green Party itself does allow this kind of disagreement and so on. But I'll say this though, brother, I know I got to go, but I must say, see, this is where you and I do in some ways live in different worlds, because as crucial and as important as the issue of vaccines and the COVID situation was, when you say that's probably the most important issue in your lifetime or in the last 25 or 30 years, in light of all the wars, in light of what Palestinians
For
are going
us,
through,
yes.
in light of what workers are going through, 63% of them live
Workers
paycheck
were
to paycheck,
affected.
in terms of all the vicious attacks of the police and the murders and so forth. And yet this vaccine issue is the most important thing.
Well, yeah,
I
because
say, okay,
nice
that's my
people were
brother
attacked.
Jimmy, he's got a right to raise his voice. I'm not going to in any way push it away, but
People
I
that
just
were
live in a
nice and
different
did
world.
everything
As
right were
important as
attacked.
vaccines have been, if I had another chance, I'd be leaning much more with the Black Caucus. But when I think of the weightiest issues, vaccines does not come immediately.
I'm sorry, but like the vaccine issue and privacy issues, they are infinitely more important than white supremacy right now.
To mine. It just doesn't. That's the kind of world we live in, brother.
Okay.
Maybe I spend,
Well, here it is. That black
You know what,
business owners collapsed by 41% black
Yeah.
business because of lockdowns.
Yeah.
Do you care yet?
Well, no,
70,000
poor
workers in
people.
one state were fired because of vaccine
Yeah.
mandate.
Poor people like suffered more from COVID policies than COVID itself.
When are you going to care? Do they all have to be trans? How do you? When are you going to care about these workers? What are you going to care about? What are you going to care about this?
They have to be trans for me to care.
You don't
about
care.
these
You don't
things.
care. Why don't you care
Yeah,
about
it's strange.
Why would you accuse me? Of course I care about it.
You're saying it's not important.
He's saying it's not
I didn't
important.
say it wasn't important. I said it was not the most fundamental
Oh.
issue in my lifetime.
Okay.
The last 30 years. Why? But
He's allowed to.
medical
You got an
experiments.
either-or mind,
Forced
brother.
medical
You got an either-or
experiments
mind.
that the scheme.
Where's the nuance?
Oh,
Where's the
my
subtlety?
God.
Where's the complexity,
So you missed this story and
brother?
you're not
It's
interested in
either
getting
or.
it right.
You either agree with Jimmy Dore.
So you missed
or
this
you
story
don't.
and you're not
God
interested.
bless. All
Well,
right, bless
Dr.
you,
West,
bless
I
you.
wish you the best. You know I love you.
appreciate
You know I
love
support.
you and your precious wife and your family. You stay strong, though, brother.
Okay, I wish you all the best. I love you. Thanks for coming on. I really do wish you all the best. And I just wish you had a clearer message to reach people, but you don't. It's muddled and it's a loser. So Dr. Peter McCullough.
It's a
we've had on
deluser.
the show.
It's like a mix of delusion and loser. The loser. That's good. Jimmy just invented another word, and he's got like 1 million something subscriber. I guess he deserves most of them. No, he's amazing. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed the video and watching it with me today. And I died like 2 times in the game. It's really hard if ever you want to try it. Zelda Ancient Dungeon. All right, so I hope you have a nice day. See you. Bye.